Okay, in this video we are going to make the lever handle, which employs the use of a loft. This is probably one of our more technically challenging parts that we're going to make this semester. First thing we need to recognize is this is a metric drawing, so you need to click the New button and be sure to select from the metric folder a standard millimeter IPT template, and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is start a sketch on the XY plane. I'm going to use this sketch to create the rails for my loft, and I'm going to project the geometry of the x-axis and the y-axis so I can refer to them. If I were to draw the basic shape of the rails, I'm going to start with a vertical line, a diagonal line, and a horizontal line for the inside rail, and then do something very similar for the outside rail. There we go. So let me bring the drawing over here. So what I'm drawing are the inside and outside rails here as seen from this side view. The center line up here is going to be the top of the rail, and it's going to come down and over, and this center line down here is my x-axis. The vertical center line right here is going to be my y-axis. So it's 7 millimeters in width at the top. It has two radii here, an inside radius of 51 and outside radius of 58. The centers of those fillets are 24 millimeters down from the top, and then an additional 3. Those come down, and we have another pair of fillets here, an inside radius of 8, an outside radius of 20, and those transition into a circle at the bottom, which has a diameter of 20. So the width here at the end is 20 millimeter diameter shown right there. So let's get started on making these rails. First, I'll dimension the width of the top. That is 7 millimeters. And to get it centered on this axis, I will dimension from the axis to one of the side rails. That's going to be half of 7, or 3.5. At the bottom, the distance between these are 20. And from here to this one is half of that, or 10. Let's apply the fillets to these corners. So at the top I've got an inside radius of 51. So let's fillet with 51 millimeters these two lines, and then with 58 millimeters these two lines to get those curves. Now we need to constrain the centers of those fillets, and so I'm going to just kind of manually drag that one down a little bit because I want it to be below the top of this line, so I can put a dimension on here of 24 millimeters. And then another dimension from here to here of 3. I want the tops of these two lines to be horizontally aligned with each other, so I'll add a constraint right there to get them lined up. At the bottom, these inside and outside corners should have radii of 8 and 20 respectively. So I'll add an 8 millimeter radius to the inside and a 20 millimeter radius to the outside. Now, I actually want this to end on a curve. I actually don't want this little line here. I had it drawn initially just so I could add the fillet and get it tangent to the horizontal line, but I don't actually need it in my finished sketch, so I'll go ahead and delete that. I'm going to constrain this point, which is the midpoint of my fillet radius here. I'm going to constrain that to be coincident with the end point of that line. And then the distance from the end point of this line to the center of this fillet is given in the drawing as 3 millimeters. Let me drag the drawing over here. From the center line, from the vertical center line here over to the right side of this feature is 39.5 millimeters, but our rails are ending on the left side of that feature, so 39.5 minus 7 is 32.5. So if I place that dimension here from this center line to there, that should be 32.5. Okay, that isn't exactly what I wanted. Let's try undoing that and placing this dimension to there, to the top one, and that should be 32.5. Okay, so I've got the rails essentially where I want them. It's not fully constrained though, so let's try to figure out why. Okay, my overall height, I didn't specify that. Let's take a quick look at the drawing here. From the center line of the bottom to the center line at top is 90. I did not include that, so let's place that dimension from here to there. Should be 90. Now this sketch is fully constrained. So these are going to be used as the rails. I think I'll stop right there and pick this up in the next video.